Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. So in this video we are going to take it. What are you doing here? What were you told? I'm ready to put you in the top 10. So we're going to take a close look at the top 10, the best handhelds for 2020. So yeah, guys, best wishes for 2021, because this is also the first video where we're going to take a close look at these handhelds and to check out which one will just basically be in my top 10. There are so many choices out there, and this is more like a personal top 10 video. Yeah, take in consideration that I don't have reviewed all single handhelds because something were not even worth mentioning, or I didn't have the time to get those. Nevertheless, this is my top 10. I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, become one of the Wicked family, and I will see you in the end of this video. Okay guys, so for the number 10 position, I choose the Retro Game 350p or the RG 350p. And the reason why is quite simple. I did like the previous model, the 350 is one of the best handhelds from I think 2019. Nevertheless, this was more like the improved edition because they fixed all of the issues, including, yeah, they put the D-pad and the analog sticks on the right position in my opinion. But nevertheless, this was just a great handheld, and I must say I was very pleased to see it, but was kind of weird at the same time, because we already had the metal edition, and the metal edition was improved also with a different display. And yeah, the 350p was a great handheld, had a lot of capabilities when it comes, of course, in combination with the open dinguks. And I think this thing has quite some interesting specifications and options when it comes to retro gaming. Nowadays, we're having so many open dinguks handhelds, it's just a freaking jungle out there. But I think the 350p it was one of my favorites from 2020, so therefore I will put it in the number 10 position. It's not a super powerful handheld, it will run PlayStation 1 pretty good, but in the end it was more like a minor upgrade over all the other versions, or it was more like the 350 metal with a plastic shell. Alright, so for the number 9 position, I choose, maybe a little surprise for you, the PS7000. Yeah, like Arnold always likes to say, 7000! So the 7000 is a quite interesting handheld. So this thing come out of nothing, 7-inch display. Oh yeah guys, 7 inches of fun. The game console was based on Linux, if I'm saying it correctly, and it was quite powerful. It's not powerful enough to run Dreamcast or PSP or GameCube whatsoever. It was still more of the same when it comes to the compatibility of the games. So it can still run up to PlayStation 1. But there is a thing what I really like about it, and it's not the 256 megabyte of RAM, because that was pretty damn depressing. It was more like the way how they made this. It comes with a pretty nice display, it comes with a very good, it comes with an ID card. But also what I do like about it is that this thing has some great controls. When you're comparing this with different systems I've reviewed, most of them have more like these 4 buttons that needs to be in D-pad or seems to be in D-pad. That's pretty awful, but this thing has some good, nice controls, some pretty good decent joysticks, and it's some good audio. So in overall, when I'm looking at the device, I think it was pretty good. So if you were looking at the X16 back in the day, you can see that it has a big step up within a year. We're finally having let's say a 7-inch handheld that has an IPS display, good controls, and we're having the options to play PlayStation 1, because we couldn't do that with the X16. So also we're having the option to have a TV out function, but the TV out function with HDMI capabilities, because if you're looking at all the Chinese handhelds, most of them have the AV out and it's pretty chippy. But nevertheless, when you're playing the games, it's super easy to use, just plug and play. Also something that was not very common with Chinese handhelds. So therefore I wanted to put this version, the P7000, on the number 9 position, because this thing just needed a spot in my top 10. Alright, so you can see that the specifications are not super high end. We're also having a normal non-IPS display in it. Yeah, the resolution, it's all pretty basic, but yeah, it's still a budget handheld. If you're going to get a handheld with better specs, you're going to pay way more money for this. But yeah, still, I want to put this on the number 9 position. Okay, so next up in the number 8 position, I have chosen to put the Game Boy Advance from LCL. Okay, so this product, I did like it very much, and the reason why are a couple of reasons. So to begin with, I love the Game Boy Advance and what he is doing over there. And I mean with this that he's making these things just, let's say, not mass production. It's more like they are making these things custom made, and most of them are going to be on request. When you're having the handheld in your hand, you feel that feels quite heavy and feels like a nice durable product. What I think is pretty cool that he also tried to improve his products. So as you can see here, we have the USB data cable that comes with it, all specially made for this Game Boy Advance, and it will also include some extra cartridges. With this version we can remove those and we can just basically use a different kind of software. Also, this version comes with a beautiful IPS display. It still runs on a CM3 module, and this means that we're going to get the option to play some Dreamcast, but it will still be choppy, and PSP is the same story. But still, it's a little bit step up, and especially a big step up when you're looking at the old model I have in the collection. So therefore you're going to get two cartridges with two different kind of software. You can order more, you can order the cartridge with a decal, it's all very cool. But also the reason why I put a handheld like this in my collection and also in my top 10 is very simple. If you're looking at the first model, you can see that he's really trying his best to improve his product, and that is also something that I really appreciate, and that are things that I consider to taking handhelds in my top 10 list. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the Power Stone game, and what you can see that this game is playable. It's more like a hit or miss when it comes to PSP, Dreamcast and N64 on handhelds like these, but it still has a lot of potential, and therefore I think the handheld just deserves a spot in the top 10. So where a lot of handhelds struggle with N64, Dreamcast, PSP or have no option to play those, the LCL Game Boy did have this option. So therefore I'm going to put the handheld on this position. And it just needed a spot in my top 10. So in the next position I choose it for the Retro Game 350 metal. And the reason why I choose the metal on this position, because I really love the metal shells. It gives this thing a very nice high quality feeling. And feels like a brick. But nevertheless, I am a big fan of the open dingus because you can do whatever you want with it. And yeah, the capabilities of this handhelds were very similar to the 350p. But still I want to put it in a little bit higher position because of the metal shell. It was a little bit higher resolution display in it. But nevertheless, I think it was just an amazing piece of hardware. Especially of the metal shell, we have possibilities to add and remove your own emulators with the open dingus. You can still do a lot of things with it, which you couldn't do with, let's say, the basic handhelds back in the day. What I'm basically always saying with these handhelds, with open dingus, what I do love about it is not the emulators, but I love the homebrew on it. Like Street Race Remake, one of my favorite beat 'em ups. The emulation on these handhelds is very good, and it's still not perfect because so far I know CPI 3 is not running perfectly, and we have no option to play Dreamcast and PSP that we have on the Game Boy LCL. But nevertheless, therefore I'm still putting it in a little bit higher simply because these things were, I would say, more affordable. The LCL are just more expensive. And if you're looking at this and the LCL, I think my personal favorite will be this handheld because it's feeling a little bit more comfortable than the LCL. So therefore I'm going to put this thing on a higher position. Okay, so on this position I choose the X15 from Powkiddy. And the reason why is very simple. I think this is one of the many handhelds they bring out in these invasions, but I think it's very easily forgotten by many. Sadly, when you're going to buy it, so far I know you can still only buy it with the special Powkiddy software, but I do not like at all. And the reason why, because you're limited, you can't use the Play Store. There are some, let's say, Android upgrades out there that you basically can remove it and install it with a clean Android edition so you can use the Play Store. But nevertheless, what I do like about this handheld is that this device itself has so much potential. Beautiful display in it. It also comes with Android, so we can add emulators, we can reconfigure it with front end. There is so much stuff you can do with this. It's flawed in many ways, of course. There is always something that is not good. And the reason why, because they are still kind of a budget product. But what I do like about it is the form factor and how it looks. I really hate the D-pad, so they are one of these things that is just a little bit of a bummer. Okay, so in previous models I've reviewed of GXD, one of the famous brands from China, the main problem I'm always having that we're going to get a very old prehistoric Android version like 4.4. And with this version we're going to get the Android version 7. Still, it's limited, but we can do so much awesome things with this, especially when it comes to emulation and we want to install some APK files. Especially if you want to play retro games, we're having so many new options that we didn't have with the previous models I've reviewed, or better said, in this top 10. It's still underpowered, it's not a super powerful device because in the end it's still a budget handheld. But if you want to play some Dreamcast or Sega Saturn, it is possible, but it will be choppy. So like always, there is something they mess up, but the reason why, because they are limited with the things they can do and also the budget. So there are a lot of Android devices out there, one of them will come back into this top 10 and you will see that a lot of stuff will run great, but those things are most of the time very expensive to buy. Despite the flaws of the machine, I think it's still great, and even for 2020 it was one of my favorite handhelds, so that is also a reason why I'm going to get a spot in my personal top 10 video. Okay, so on the number 5 I choose the Kinhunk GP430. So this device was more like a surprise that was a little bit too late. And the reason why I say a little bit too late, because this device was a high quality premium product. And there was basically nothing to complain about it, only they released it on a completely different moment. They just needed to go back into the time and release the 10, because nowadays we're having so many handhelds that can do the same things. And that is just the biggest bummer of this handheld, that it has so much potential, but because of the support of the games, and when you're looking at all the other handhelds that I've reviewed, it's all a little bit becoming more of the same. The biggest difference is that the quality of this product was just more like a premium. I can say that it's getting close to a PS Vita, for example. They did a lot of engineering, they did a lot of testing it out to make a very good product. And I did notice it with the D-pad, the games play very well, the joysticks feel very nice. The joysticks were more not comparable with the original PS Vita or a Nintendo Switch. They are good joysticks for, let's say, Chinese handhelds. So yeah guys, so this was a Raspberry Pi CM3 module inside. It's a very powerful module, it gives us a lot of potential when it comes playing retro games, from the old school stuff up to the Sega Dreamcast and even PSP. Like always, Dreamcast, PSP and all those things are more like the high-end, the later systems, and those will not run perfectly on this handheld. And that is what I mean, if they released this, let's say, a year ago, this would be more like the best handheld. But now it's just more disappearing in this invasion and makes this handheld kind of obsolete. But don't get me wrong, I like it and this is one of my favorites, therefore I'm going to put it in my top 10 for 2020 and will be on the number 5 position. The only downside I did find on this thing is it's a little bit expensive, and that is what you're going to get now. The handheld's going to become more premium, better quality, and the prices go up. But yeah guys, better late than never. I think it's still a very cool handheld, so if you're thinking I need a Raspberry Pi based handheld and it needs to be more like a higher quality premium device, this can be maybe an option for you. Nevertheless, I think it's a pretty cool thing to have, but I wish it was with a CM3 or a Plus Edition or a 4, so we can basically play Dreamcast and PSP perfectly. That is something I'm still waiting for in the new year. Nevertheless, number 5 for the GP430, the Pi. Raspberry Pi. Okay, so 2020 was a very interesting year, and you can see it with the Powkiddy RGB number 10, because this was more like the new generation of handhelds from China. We moved from the chipsets or the very old chipsets. Nevertheless, now we're going to get more like the rock chipsets. And I can say there's a lot of chip in a sense, but nevertheless, what you're going to get is a very interesting product. And I like the design, to be honest. I really like it. It comes in different colors like yellow, black, and there was another color that I can't remember. But nevertheless, what I do like about this is that it looks very cool and it plays quite nice. It has one of the best D-pads I've ever felt. And for me, with the D-pad fetish, this says a lot. Okay, so this handheld does not come with a very nice 5 or 7 inch display, but still it comes with a very nice IPS display. Something you see more often nowadays, and a little bit in 2020 they moved from the crappy screens to the IPS display, so I'm very pleased to see that too. Okay, so what you can see that this thing is based on the Rockchip 3326. It's a quad core combined with the Mali G31 GPU. I think this is a very interesting handheld. It's still flawed, don't get me wrong, And when you're looking at the arcade chipset, you can see they are very similar with other models. But I do like this thing because it looks fantastic, to be honest. I like the form factor, I like how it feels in my hands, and the D-pad. Oh man, I'm in love with this one, so therefore I'm going to give this thing the number 4 position. Man, this D-pad feels so nice. Alright baby, you know what time it is. It's time for MNIC Retro Game 351p. Yes, okay, so the reason why I put this thing in a little bit higher list is more of the casing. Yeah, when you're looking at the specifications, it's similar to the Powkiddy. Because yeah, look at this, it's the same specifications when it comes to the CPU and the GPU. Maybe there will sometimes be difference in the displays or the battery milliamp, whatever. But I think it's most important is the specifications of the handheld and what can it do. But why should I even put it in it as it have the same specifications? That is very simple. I love the shell what they've made with the MNIC handheld. So this thing is, I can say, bigger than the Powkiddy. Therefore, it's going to be higher up in my list because I think this thing is way comfortable than the Powkiddy. And not to forget, we also having 2 joysticks over here that the Powkiddy doesn't have. So here and there, they did some minor improvements. It's based on the same chip. I think it's a little bit of a bummer, but I already mentioned sometime in this video ago is that this is going to be the next generation in my opinion. So we will see this chipset more often in different handhelds. So what I do like about these handhelds, that we're going to get the support that we didn't see before, especially with the Open Dingus version. Open Dingus is more like the old stuff up to PlayStation 1 and then it's over. But with these handhelds we're having the options to play PSP, Sega Dreamcast, there is better support for N64. So nevertheless we're having way more support when it comes to the games, and I think the interface looks way better, because with the MNIC we don't really have an interface more like in different apps on a phone or in a handheld in this case. Nevertheless, when you're looking at the way how it looks and how it plays, it's not bad at all, and we're having a lot of different options. The same goes with the Powkiddy, we're having the option doing quick load, quick save. It works all way more convenient than the Open Dingus handhelds. But I want to add this handheld to my collection, but also to this top 10 list because I think it's pretty cool. It plays very well, it emulates the game very good. And yeah, the rock chip, I think this will not be the only handheld in 2020 or 2021 that we will see with the same chipset. Okay, so for the number 2 I choose my favorite, Moqi i7s. The reason why, before you think, hey, this thing is crazy expensive, yes it is, but it has so much potential when it comes to Android and retro emulation. I also call the review the best of both worlds, and I'm using this handheld daily, simply because we can do so much things with it. Okay, so if you want to play retro emulation, Dreamcast runs basically on 60 FPS on full HD, where a lot of these cheaper handhelds have problems running on low resolutions. The Moqi i7s has no problems whatsoever. And don't get me wrong, this thing is flawed in many ways, besides the price is way too high for this device. But when you're looking at specifications, here's where it's going to get really interesting. It's running on a Snapdragon 710. And that is something that I personally never seen in another handheld. And the Moqi i7s makes this thing just unique. An Android 8.1, 6GB of RAM, 64GB ROM capacity. Nevertheless, I think we're having for storage, RAM and OS, we're having so much stuff that we can do. And that makes this thing pretty cool. Beautiful display. And we can of course play Android games. So you can do everything on this handheld. You can just play games on Android, but also you can play games on emulation. So the reason that is just going to be on number 2 is the price. The price is very high of this device, and that is, I think, the biggest bummer in my opinion. The D-pad is a very strange clicky D-pad, but you will really going to get used to it in the end. If you're looking at all the specifications and all the things you can do with it, yeah, even if you're going to say I want to have one product that I can use for my daily tasks like Android and also can just use it to play some games, the Moqi i7s is one of the best things you can get, because there are not many of these handhelds out there with latest Android version, and good support, playing Android games and playing retro games. So therefore, I'm going to put the number 2 position to my Moqi i7s. So for the number 1 position, I choose the Retroid Pocket 2. The reason why is very simple. It's the price. It's what you can do with it and the combination of these things. And therefore, I need to put this thing on the number 1 position. I do like the Android. I really love it that they're using the Android 6 and the later models become upgraded to number 8. Nevertheless, it's a shame that it doesn't have a touchscreen. That would be so much better. But in combination with the controls, we can play retro games, we can play some Android games and not fully compatible with the Android games. And when we're going to shift over to the Retroid Pocket 2 menu, you can see we're having so much stuff that we can play on it. PSP and Dreamcast and N64 is still choppy, and that's just a big bummer. But yeah, it's more like a low priced product. I wouldn't say low quality because that is not to be compared with the really old stuff that I reviewed in the beginning. It's just a really fun product. If you want to play some retro games, it just needs to be convenient. You're going to add your Android account to it and you want to play some Minecraft, for example. Would not recommend it, but it is all possible if you want to add some games. Nevertheless, it will be more focused on the retro gaming part, but you can do so much cool things with this. Okay, so that concludes this top 10 for 2020. These are my favorite handhelds when you're looking at the performance and the price and yeah, how was my personal experience with these. So yeah, let me know in the comments what kind of handheld did you bought in the last couple of years and what are your favorite ones. I'd really love to know. I want to thank you for watching. Consider subscribing, hit the little bell, become the Wicked family, and I will see you in the next video.